Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back to All Chiefed Up. We're back with another podcast for that ass. And yesterday we released Chiefs top 30 visits. And today, lo and behold, they add one more on to us, Steve. Wide receiver from Central Florida, Javon Baker. Let's talk about him.
Before we get the show started, I just want to take a second to say thank you for watching All Chiefed Up. We appreciate you guys supporting the channel. Please hit that like button, get this out to more Chiefs fans. And do us a favor if you haven't already. Hit that freaking subscribe button, baby. Let's go, Mike. Let's talk about Javon Baker.
Let's talk about Javon Baker, Central Florida wide receiver, Steve. He's from Atlanta, Georgia, 6'1", 202, 32 1/4-inch arms, 9 5/8-inch hands. He runs a 4.54 40-yard dash at the combine, a 1.58 10-yard split, 37-inch vertical jump, 10-foot 1-inch broad jump. Pretty good explosion numbers there, Steve. What did he do? He finishes 13th in production, 32nd in athleticism, and 22nd in total score, Steve. That doesn't seem like very athletic for Veach and Company. It's showing a 7.93 on the RAS charts here. Do you think this is a little off of what we usually have been looking at? Because we've already looked at Anthony Gold, pretty high number. We've talked with Ladd McConkey. We've talked with Xavier Worthy. What about Javon Baker, Steve?
Well, I think it should give people that want a little bit different kind of receiver in Kansas City some hope, right? Like they're not just looking at the athletic freaks or the little small guys that run a 4.3.
Right.
They're doing their due diligence on all different types of receivers. Javon Baker's proof of that, Mike. I think he's a decent receiver. Over on NFL.com, Lance Zierlein, he compares him to Josh Palmer. And he says that his strength are that he's well built with NFL size and above average play strength. He uses speed variance and times up bursts to race past off man coverage. Separates with pretty good routes that should get much better. Works back to the throw and will scramble open for his quarterback. That is key for Patrick Mahomes, by the way.
Right.
Wins downfield with good poise, a springy vertical, and plus ball tracking, also a big check mark there. And then he stabs off-frame throws with quick hands and excellent body control. So yeah, Mike, the strengths of Javon Baker, they fit into the wheelhouse of the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and he's a bigger body like Josh Palmer as opposed to the little guy like Anthony Gold that they looked at yesterday. So it's definitely something a little bit different, and I think that Chiefs Kingdom should be excited about the fact that Brett Veach is looking at different types.
Right. Well, when Javon Baker played high school in Georgia, he had 65 receptions, 629 yards, 11 touchdowns as a senior. He was invited to play in the All-American Bowl, and he committed to the University of Alabama. He actually played 2 years at Alabama. You have to be good to be committing to Alabama. We know how that works.
Right.
He wanted to transfer. He almost transferred to UK, Steve. He was almost a receiver at the University of Kentucky.
Should have came on over.
Right. And Stoops, he almost pulled one off, but he didn't. He ended up going to Central Florida. He done well at Central Florida. As a senior this past year, he was named first team All Big 12. He had 52 catches, almost 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. And I feel like he's a guy that you can throw out on the boundary. He's not a slot guy. He is a boundary guy. I was mentioning before we started, is this their version of, instead of a South Florida MVS, we have a Central Florida Javon Baker. I also see today where A to Z Sports and Charles Goodman kind of comped him to DeMarcus Robinson, if you remember DeMarcus Robinson. Well, who don't remember that?
It's weird because I don't really know about that comp, to be quite honest, because DeMarcus Robinson coming out of Florida was an athletic freak, and that's why the Chiefs took a flyer on him, because he had some issues off the field and stuff like that. It made him drop in the draft, but as far as athleticism, he was top-notch. I think that's why they went after DeMarcus Robinson. Javon Baker, to me, seems like a different kind of beast. He seems like the guy that, it's not the flashy guy at the combine. He don't have all the spectacular numbers that some of these guys do as far as 40 times, the 10-yard split, and blah, blah, blah. But could he be that guy that no one's talking about that's just a damn good football player, just a good receiver that you can get in the middle of the draft and him be successful in the NFL? I mean, NFL.com says that they think that he can definitely be a wide receiver 3 in the NFL at his floor. So, I mean, he definitely could fall into that category, Mike. But, you know, he doesn't come without his weaknesses. And that's what I'd like to discuss right now. Lance Zierlein says that he's excitable against favorable coverage and will rush through routes, which means when he's open a little bit or he thinks he's going to get open, he gets too horned up, Mike.
Yeah, he gets a little horned up.
He
rushes those routes a little bit.
He almost passes out instead of catching the football.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Goes directly to his penis.
He does say he needs to be more.
Out.
Yeah, he does say he needs to be more physical, maintaining catch room to the boundary on verticals. Occasional inconsistencies finishing routes underneath. And here's one that we really have to focus on a little bit here. After what we watched last season, he loses focus from time to time and disappoints with drops.
Yeah.
So that's a huge one.
Javon Baker, look, I've told you I punched these in throughout the top wide receivers in last year. So I used Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Puka Nacua, Stephon Diggs. I think that covers a pretty good plethora of wide receiver talent from the NFL. So that gives me categories to look at and how they rank. Right now, Javon Baker at 6'1", is good. He ranks as a good 40 time at a 4.54. He has a good 10-yard split at 1.58. He has a good 37-yard vert. He has good showing in his hands at 32 1/4 and 9 5/8 arms is also good. He has one elite category. That is 58.8% contested catch rate, Steve. But the one thing he struggles and mightily struggles with is his hands. A 10 drop rate, 10.3 to be exact, a 10.3 drop rate. And that is just something I don't know if Chiefs Kingdom wants to deal with.
Do you want to gamble on that after last season?
No,
really?
I will say.
I don't know.
Right, his numbers, if you compare those to Rashee Rice last year at 6'1", 204, he basically run the same exact stuff Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice ran a 4.51 compared to his 4.54. It was a 1.49 10-yard split. That's a decent amount faster than his 1.58 10-yard split. So it kind of feels like it's another Rashee Rice, maybe not as athletic, and maybe worse hands, if that's saying anything. So
right.
I don't know if I'm completely sold on this. We have him right now, Steve, ranked number 19 out of our top wide receivers. We got him 19th. I think that's pretty fair. And I think if you look at who the Chiefs are looking at in their top 30 visits, minus, of course, they've interviewed Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, people like that. But if you look at the Anthony Golds, if you look at some of the other guys we're looking at, they tend to be looking at middle round guys here. I think Javon Baker could get up into the late second round, but to me, it's like, third round, early fourth, maybe even late fourth, somewhere in that little, early day 3 kind of category. So it seems like that's where the Chiefs might be looking to draft here.
Yeah, it's a possibility. A lot of the guys that they're talking to in their top 30, which I guess for now is just, as far as pass catchers go, would be Anthony Gold, Javon Baker, and Eric All, the tight end. Those are all guys that are projected a little later in the day, like day 3?
Day 3.
So maybe the Chiefs are eyeballing that range because that's where they're going to draft. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just covering all bases. Sometimes I think Brett Veach and crew, I think they tend to draft best player available a lot, especially if it's open on which position they need to be picking. So, if someone falls in their lap, they're going to take them. If they don't, then guess what? They take the best player available. They get the wide receiver later in the draft. So I think they're doing their due diligence there. And real quick, before we stop about Javon Baker, Mike, one more weakness that they talk about with Javon Baker is that he runs off defenders much more than actually engaging as an eager blocker. I think that's an important one as well because even MVS, who struggled so bad last season, couldn't catch a cold, he still was a good blocker. He made sure that he was good at blocking, and that's what kept him around in Kansas City, and that's what kind of gave him a pass on some of the drops and things because he was doing the things when the eyes weren't on him right. When the spotlight wasn't on him, he was still doing all the things right. That's something that you really have to consider when you're looking at these guys too. I think those 2 knocks on Javon Baker, those are not little knocks, man. If you're dropping a lot of passes to the tune of 10 out of 100, you're going to drop. And then also you're not looking to block. That's not good. You don't have elite athleticism on the other end to make up for it either. So I don't hate the Javon Baker prospect. I do like him. I think he's got some good tape. He's a good receiver. But I think you got to be a little wary of certain things too. So that's where all these interviews come into play.
Right. To me, he looks like a carbon copy of Rashee Rice on film. Not as in his gameplay, but his size and his movement, things like that. He doesn't move as well after the ball. He's not as explosive, in my opinion, after the catch. He's not going to make as many people miss. He's good at contested catches. I get that. But to me, it feels like more of a Rashee Rice part 2 and somebody that's lower than, say, if you want to replace MVS with a big body on the outside. Because, again, Bad hands. We don't want that again with MVS. That's definitely not the trait we want to try to upgrade here with MVS, is to get somebody with equally bad hands.
Right.
And then you definitely don't want to downgrade on the blocking aspect of it, because as you said, that's what kept MVS on the field. So Javon Baker's a mid-round prospect. He's fine. Again, I think if Brett Veach and them are looking at it, I think they see something, and that's fine. A lot of people don't like the track record with the Chiefs and wide receivers. I understand that too. So, yeah, it is what it is. I think they're not looking to take this guy in the first round, and probably not even the second round. So I think we'll be fine with that. And if you go anywhere after the third, I'm fine with it.
I think that's very important for people to understand that are watching these videos or talking about, we don't want another Sky Moore 2.0, or we don't want this or that. It's like some of these guys that are bringing on these visits, like Javon Baker and Anthony Gold, those are not guys they're looking to get in the first or second round. So you don't have to worry about that. Even, could you imagine, a lot of people are down on Sky Moore, Mike, and they're like, oh, he's a bust and he sucks. But if you get someone at that skill level, with all his traits in the 5th round, you would jump on it. So, it doesn't really correlate. So I think...
right. If Sky Moore is carrying a 5th round stigma as a tag, that's way better than trading up in the second. And I don't think they would trade up to get Javon Baker either.
Absolutely
I feel like they could look at him at 64 if they sit. That could be the absolute peak. Yeah, that's the absolute peak in my opinion.
But yeah, it's like if you're one of those guys that really want to see Xavier Legette in a Chiefs uniform, I would love that too. But there's a good chance he might not even be there the first time we pick. If you'd love to see Keon Coleman, that's cool. I get it. I understand. But it doesn't really affect if they take a Javon Baker or an Anthony Gold to me, because those are later round draft picks.
Right. I totally agree. And so that wraps up Javon Baker. I wish we could have included him in the video we did yesterday. And by the way, if you didn't get to watch that, we're going to link that right here. Go back and watch that. We're covering all the top 30 visits so far. And that's going to wrap it up for the day, guys. Thanks for liking, subscribing, hitting that bell. We'll catch you next time. Go Chiefs.